Welcome to the Essential Self-Care Podcast, where we talk about all things self-care for those of us who are, let's face it, too busy for self-care. It's time to bring that same compassion that you offer to everyone else in your life to yourself as well. In this podcast, you'll hear real-life stories of how self-care transformed people's lives as they were going through life's storms. You'll learn practical, actionable tools to begin the self-care journey yourself as well. Because like I always say, small changes make a large impact. I'm your host, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. I'm a physician, best-selling author, and the founder of Radiant Living Institute. Through my signature program, Reclaim Your Radiance, you'll reclaim your worth, renew your energy, and restore your happiness in your life, career, and relationships. To get started, download your free guidebook, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life at radiantlivinginstitute.com. Quick disclaimer before we get started, the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always seek the advice of your own medical practitioner and or mental health provider about your specific situation. Now, let's get started. Today, I have the pleasure and honor of welcoming back to the Essential Self-Care Podcast my dear friend, Tanya MFK. Tanya and I go way back to 2015 when we met through a yoga teacher training program in Costa Rica. We kept in touch, and years later, when I was looking to start working with a business coach, Tanya was the first person I reached out to. So Tanya is a dear friend, mentor, colleague, and my personal business coach. She is the founder of Success by Design, a coaching program where she brings over 20 years of global business development and marketing experience to help clients ditch the hustle and one-size-fits-all strategies to instead create a vision, plan, and systems that work for you to design success on your terms and live your best life. I'm so excited to have you back on the show today, Tanya. Welcome to the Essential Self-Care Podcast.
So excited to be back.
Tanya was actually on a few weeks ago, and she shared more about her self-care journey. During that episode, she did mention a really amazing program called Time Design. And today, Tanya is going to share more about this idea of designing your time and this specific program, which she created. And this program has already helped over 250 people in every continent except Antarctica. So you listeners in Antarctica, we're waiting for you to join. Yeah. Time is one of those things that we all feel like we don't have enough of. And Tanya has created a system to help you design your time to allow for taking care of your responsibilities and also taking care of yourself, giving yourself space to do more of what you enjoy and what you want to do. So Tanya, can you share a little bit about your system? And perhaps a great place to start off would be what even led you to create this system?
Yeah, thanks. I'm so excited to dive into this. How this got started was really based in a space of survival, a space of fear. I grew up homeless and very poor as a child. And so I cultivated a lot of ambition to work really hard and make sure that I was going to create a better future for myself. So I was extremely future focused. And so everything that I was doing was working, overachieving so I could enjoy life someday in the future. And on my 25th birthday in 2005, I sat in a doctor's office told that my husband had stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma and had 3 to 6 months to live. And 4 months later, my husband passed away. And in that process, all of the some days that I was working for, all of this future that I was suffering now for, that we could enjoy sometime in this future, no longer existed. And I had this deep regret of looking at all the times that I could have said yes to that walk. I could have said yes to that, sitting down and watching TV with him, because I was so focused on this mythical someday. And so I was really forced to relook at my life and how I wanted to spend my time now with this new revelation of the potential brevity of it. And I didn't want to move forward in any more of that regret. But again, a lot of us can scroll Instagram or anything and also find this place of inspiration, right? Be here now, live for today, create your best life, all of these things that we see. But how do we take that from the clouds to the ground, right? How do we bring that into practical? How do we go from this woozy feeling of like, yeah, that's right, I should do something, to, okay, I'm feeling groggy at 6 a.m. and I don't like to do anything, right? How do we make it practical? And that's where the idea of time design came into reality, is this time design method about ditching time management management because time management's focused around productivity and output wasn't a problem for me. Finding time for my ideal life in every day, that was now what was most important. But I get it. We have the reality here. The reality is you have bills to pay. There are jobs, there are things to do. So the goal here was to look at how do we manage the have tos with the wish tos and want tos without putting them off for someday in the future.
Yeah.
That's how they really first started.
Thank you so much for sharing more about your experience and your story and your journey. It's a really powerful journey that you experienced, that you went on. And I think a lot of people can relate to that right now in this time and space as well, especially coming through the pandemic, where so many of us have lost loved ones very unexpectedly. And so
loved ones, we've lost jobs, we thought futures we thought looked a certain way. There's been a lot of significant change and it hasn't stopped. In my area, we have the war going on in Ukraine. We've had significant changes through policy around the world. I mean, there's so much constantly going on. Housing prices, recession, like all these, and not doom and gloom by any means, but like we're all in this boat together of going, oh, wait a minute. I thought life was supposed to look different at this point.
Right. And we had talked about in the last episode that you were on with us, we had talked about this idea that sometimes life puts us in these crisis situations where we are really forced to look at our life in a different way. And so one of the things I'm really excited about having you on today to share your time design process is knowing this reality that life is always changing. And honestly, no matter how much we try to control our circumstances, there are things beyond our control. And we don't know when those may or may not show up in our lives. And so empowering ourselves with a system such as this at this time and space, I think is really, I'm going to use that word again, powerful. I also love, and I'm going to ask you to share it now, and I'm going to ask you to share at the end of the episode as well, because it is something that has stuck with me for many years since the first time I heard you say it, which is, I'm just going to give you the clue because I want you to say it. So I'm going to give you the clue of what I want you to say, but that there is no someday.
Oh, yeah. So my husband now is like, oh, she says it all the time. So I remind people that we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the calendar. There's no someday. And so if you want something to be real and you want it to happen, you have to choose a real day on a real calendar, because someday is a myth. Your someday, you want to know when it is? It's right now. Your someday is today. And so yeah, I love that. And it just reminds us that about coming in from that place of inspiration and from the clouds to the ground is that we have to get our feet running before we can leap. And so it's great to hang out in the clouds, but we got to come back down to the ground so we can take action. And another thing that you said in there was about control. And I mentioned as we started this out that when I came to this process, it came from fear. I didn't want my life to look the same way. And so what I did was try to control it. I tried to have the ambition and my action and all of these things control what my future looked like. And what and then this was a huge reminder with this happening in my life, was that I had no control. I could not change what was going on with the diagnosis, with the cancer, with the treatments. So what I like to remind people is that you don't have control. You have no control. You have power. You have power in every single uncontrollable situation. You have the power to choose your response. You have power to choose resilience. You have power to choose your mindset. You do not have control, but you absolutely have power. And
I love that. And sorry, I'm going to interrupt you here just for a second, because actually for our listeners, as you're sharing this, I remember reading this idea in one of your newsletters, I think just last week, or it might have been even earlier this week. So just for our listeners, Tanya shares these powerful bits of information on her newsletter too. So I'll share her website in the show notes and at the end of the episode, but if you want more powerful nuggets like this, definitely get on her newsletter. Go ahead. I just had to say that. Oh, and the other thing that I had to just share with you, Tanya, is thank you for saying, going over kind of the 7 days of the week, and that someday isn't one of those days. That has, as I shared before, that really has stuck with me over the years. And in fact, just last week, I said it, I'll find myself just kind of observing my thoughts. And I was driving somewhere and I was thinking about something I wanted to do. Someday, that word popped into my mind. And it's like an automatic trigger now that the very next line after I say that, I hear Tanya's voice, and it is someday doesn't exist.
Yep. Someday
Right?
doesn't
Unless
exist.
you plan it, unless you make a plan for it, someday doesn't exist.
Won't happen. I
So
can tell you
it's
right now,
really
your
powerful.
someday won't happen. It won't happen if you don't make it real.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's true. I mean, we have to really put it into plan. And that is the thing here, is that a lot of what you're going to hear about time management is predicated on the idea that you need to control your schedule, that life won't change, that everything will stay the same. As long as that you protect this time and make sure that it goes exactly according to your plan, you will be able to have the most productive, ambitious week possible. If that is what you're looking for, you might want to tune out now, because that is not what I'm going to share with you today. This is really about finding the balance for all of the things that you have to do, mixed with time for all the things that you want to do. So this idea of your best life isn't waiting for a someday in the future that doesn't exist. It's how you create it in each day, because a best life isn't an end result. A best life is an accumulation of good days. And many good days add up to a good life. And many good days are created hour by hour. And so instead of looking at how much I can squeeze out of every hour, how do we create the best from our hours each day? How are we making space and time for that? And so in a really quick kind of high level.
I know, I was about to say, oh, I love this. Okay, Tanya, tell us how to do this, because this is really exciting.
Yeah. I'm like, we're going to do it really quick here. I know, but we'll give you this high level kind of overview. The thing to remember is that, yeah, time is finite, right? You don't have time for everything. So for those of you who are like, I feel like I don't have enough time. Spoiler alert, you don't. Like, and I don't mean to be a drag here, but I want to say, like, you don't have time for everything, with the big quotes, everything. But the promise is that you can do anything. You can do anything. You can change your life. You can live a certain way. You can make time to, take that big bicycle trip or take the class or whatever. You can do anything. You just can't do everything. So the first step, the first thing we have to do is go, what matters most? I have to stop and clarify and go, what matters most? Most of us were asked as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Lovely question in theory, but ultimately what it boils down to is, how do you want to make money as a grown-up? That's all they're really asking. What career do you want? Hey, little tiny person, well, how do you want to make money when you get older? Nobody says, hey, how do you want life to feel when you get older? What do you want your days to look like when you get older? Who do you want to be? No, when they say, who do you want to be? That's what job do you want? So this is your homework. This is your first step right now, is to step back and give yourself the time, block an hour out and say, what actually does matter to me? When I look at that, time is finite. I can't do everything. Someday doesn't exist. All those dreams I have won't magically manifest without my direct effort. What actually matters to me in this life? Is it that I want to make sure to learn Mandarin? Is it that I go on that big trip? Is it, we want to stop living a bucket list. We want to live a bucket life, right? We want to have and fill those buckets now. So what actually matters? How do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? What time do you want to spend with your family, your friends? If there's people you want to keep in touch with, you actually, like, we'll talk about it in a moment, but you're actually going to schedule that. You're going to make those at like an appointment, the same way that you give precedence and commitment to going to the DMV, okay, which nobody likes to do, yet we have and make time for it. Going to the dentist, we make time for it, but we don't make time for the life that we want. So the first thing I want you to do, step one, is to clarify what matters most. Really sit down and go, what life do I want? What matters to me, that when I'm on that deathbed, I can go, yeah, I did those things. What matters most? So big question. I absolutely understand it, but it's worth exploring. And it only feels big because it's the first time you've been asked. You've been challenged to really look at it.
Absolutely. And so even if I would say also, I know when I have clients go through some processes like this, sometimes it can be hard to think of things if you've never done a process like this too.
Yeah.
So be gentle with yourself too. Like Tanya says, for so many years, since you were a young child, you were being asked questions a certain way, right? And that's so interesting the way you said that. Yeah, it's what do you want to be when you grow up? It really is, how do you want to make money when you grow up? And we're asking a small child that, that's, it's a very
wild.
Interesting point to think of it that way. And so if this is your first time asking and clarifying questions like this, sit with it, give yourself that hour, like Tanya said, and just see what comes up.
Yeah, see, and there's no lofty, there's no test, right? So nobody needs to go, well, what matters most is that I feed world hunger. And like, that's not what we're talking about. Okay. Like, there's great things, and I'm glad you have values, but I want you to get real and go, what matters most is I want to make sure that you might find that dancing is the thing that is going to light you up. You might find that it's writing a book. You might find that it's literally just seeing your friends on a regular basis. Like, this is a judgment-free zone, is just for you to go, what matters most to me right now? And this is why we ask the question often, is because it will continually adapt and change as you also adapt and change.
Exactly. There's no, Tanya and I talked about this in the last episode. So if you haven't listened to that last episode, definitely check that out after you listen to this one. But one of the things that we talked about there is like, there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. Really, it's just whatever is right for you. And that's whatever is coming up for you in this moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing I want to think is remind you that this idea of creating the best life is your responsibility. And I want to speak some life into that word, because the responsibility tends right now to carry a lot of burden in it. And I want you to look and break down that word. That responsibility is the ability to respond. And you have the ability right now to respond to the needs and desires that you want in your life. And so when we put that responsibility on, oh, it's my job, or I can't because of the kids, you take away your ability to respond to your own needs and desires of the life that you want. So hold that responsibility, hold it beautifully, hold it powerfully. Now, the next thing I'm going to throw in there, this is going to be really nitty gritty and super unsexy. Get a planner. Okay. Your brain was not created to retain a bunch of lists or details or schedules. That's not your brain. Your brain was created to keep you alive. It was to help you survive. So those of you who want to go, oh, remember, science says no. Okay. So you can argue with me all day. Science says no. Get a planner. So whether it's a paper planner or a digital planner, it's a whole different thing. It's going to be, well, again, what works best for you, but you need to be able to see what your days really look like, which brings us to the next point there. As we move along this journey, we've started to clarify what matters. We got a planner. We're feeling inspired. The nitty gritty step, really first step one, is to know your true available time. Okay. And when I say your true available time, what I mean is that I want you to look at your real life in the next 2 weeks, right? Let's make this super duper real for anyone listening. The next 2 weeks, and I want you to block out, as if it's an appointment, every moment of your time that's already spoken for. Okay. I don't mean appointments, I mean spoken for. So when you wake up, if you don't roll out of bed directly into your chair at home office or into your office, if you're not sleeping at your office, which I hope you're not, there is some time frame between you getting out of bed and in that. It might be your morning routine. Your morning routine might be some Tony Robbins thing, or it might be scrolling Instagram. Again, right now at this juncture, I don't care what it is, but I want you to know that you have a morning routine, no matter what it looks like. And I want you to block that time out like it's a real appointment and go, oh, I get up at 8, but from 8 to 8:30, I'm scrolling Instagram and I'm drinking coffee. Fine. So guess what? Till 8:30, you're busy. And I want you to block out how it takes you to get to work. So if you don't live at your office, block it out like an appointment. You have to work. Block that out like it's an appointment. You go to eat. Block it out. Okay. Maybe this week, oh, Tanya, this week's different. I actually have a thing. Great. Block it out. I want you to block out all your time that's already spoken for. There's no right or wrong. There's just reality. That's all that's left for this particular step. As you block that out and you look at your real life over the next 2 weeks, okay, looking at dates, whatever you see in the blank spots, if you see any at all, that's the space that you have left in your life to create your wish tos and want tos. And in this moment, there are one of two things that out of all the people we've had take through this happen. A, you go, I have no time. I really looked at this and I have slivers of moments, Tanya. And to that, I say, congratulations. And I don't mean that facetiously. All that overwhelm that you feel, completely real, completely validated. You really don't have time. And you know what? Congratulations again. You have a decision and opportunity to make. You can say, you know what? I'm okay with life looking this way. I accept this. I like it. I choose this. And now you're back in control. This is the life you live and you chose it consciously. You looked at it and said, yes, awesome. Or you look at that and you go, I don't like this. I don't like the way this looks at all. I need time for the stuff that matters most because I just did this thing with Tanya and I found out what matters most and there's no time for it. So now you have an opportunity to change it. Or Option two, you go, oh my gosh, where are these blocks of free time coming from? Because I certainly don't feel like I had 4 hours free on Wednesday. And now all of a sudden you go, I have way more time than I thought. Now I can consciously choose what to do with that instead of it flying away, right? So this knowing your real available time, that is going to be the most powerful step in this whole thing. And as I said, you see what's left. And when you see what's left, that's what's left for your life. And now that you've identified what you want out of life, right? Who you want to be, what you want life to look like, how you want it to feel, why you want it to look and feel that way, then you can start to plan the steps to get there. So if you say, wow, okay, I want a life where I go to the gym. I don't want you to just write, go to the gym. I want you to write down, it might be tomorrow at 10 a.m., research gyms that I could go to, right? Maybe you're not there. That's the time you block. Or it might be get up, get ready for gym, drive to gym, drive home from gym. And then you go, whoa, that's actually a 2 hour for my 1 hour gym. Fine. But I want you to plan the steps, not the result. And for the last part of this, we're going to put it on a real day, on a real calendar, right? So we've moved from what is I really dealing with? What do I have available? What is it that I really want to do? And where do I have space and time for it? And I'm going to put it on a real date. Now, there's all kinds of other details and things we can dive into, but that's really the overview. And when you have that, like, congrats, you're a time designer. That's where you're at.
This is so wonderful. Thank you so much for walking us through these steps. And Tanya, in her very practical wisdom, also gave you some homework here. And
yes.
So we both want to hear from you about how this goes. I'm just going to recap it real quick. First of all, someday doesn't exist, right? There's 7 days of the week. Someday isn't one of those 7 days. And then going through these steps, first of all, clarifying just sitting down with yourself and just really thinking about what actually matters to me. And knowing that there's no right or wrong, but just clarifying. There is so much power in just getting clarity and raising your own self-awareness. And then secondly, which is also part of that raising your self-awareness, is actually just documenting where is your time going right now, and looking at now what is your available time. So just looking at the reality, letting go of any self-judgment, just looking at what is the current reality, because that's where you have to start. You have to start with where you are now, right?
Where you are. Yeah.
Exactly. That's for all of us, for any of us, that is where we start.
You can say it should be different or it should be that, but it is where it is. And if we don't work with what we have first, we can't step into any other change. We can't MacGyver anything. Even MacGyver, which is such an old person's reference right now, but even that, he had to go, okay, I have a rubber band and I have a toothpick. And then he knew, okay, this is what I have to figure out how to escape from this thing, right? So if you know what you're working with, there is no chance. You have to first find out, where am I at? Like, Google Maps can't give you directions if you don't have a starting point. You have to know where you're at.
Exactly. So think of this as like the tools that you have, kind of right now that you can MacGyver, right? MacGyver. And so then that leads to the final step of actually doing the planning steps to, well, actually kind of before that, I guess kind of the half step before that is one, just choosing is with that conscious awareness. Am I okay with how the schedule looks like right now? Right. And choosing that, or choosing, well, there is this space here that I could fit in something from the first step of what matters to me. I can start to include that, and then actually planning it.
Making space for it. Yeah. Because you might see like, oh, I just wrote over here, what matters is connection with my family. Over here, I'm running a marathon. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with running a marathon. That's a noble thing to choose to do. And so it won't immediately hit you as something that's going against your priorities. But if you look at that and go, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I need to look at this now. And because I said over here, this is what's important, but now my time's going to this. So again, not a right or wrong, just an awareness. So huge. And really moving into all those things that you want to do, they become appointments. The same commitment and honoring that we give a dentist appointment, right, for your yoga class or reading your book or time with your child. Like it deserves a space on the calendar.
I love that as well. And I think that can be a very challenging mindset shift to make. So, but again, it all starts with that awareness. So you've heard us talk about it. It's somewhere in your awareness right now. And if that's where it stays for a while, that's okay, until it really kind of gets into your body, your nervous system.
Yeah. And if you have questions, comment below this here, like ask me like, well, what about this? I have this to do. I am more than happy. Tag me in it, tag Sheetal. I'll give as much input as I can, because I want you to take back the power to be able to design your life and live that someday today. That's the goal here.
Absolutely. And Tanya and I are both very similar in this. We are both very engaged. We love to hear from you, and we both read and reply to all of our own messages ourselves. So we really do want to hear from you. So that being said, Tanya, if someone wanted to learn more about this program specifically and connecting with you and working with you, where can they find that information?
Yeah, you can find us anywhere. Tanya MFK, the only one in the world, very easy to find. Website, TanyaMFK.com, info at Tanya MFK. Our YouTube channel has a lot of information teaching this, which is Tanya MFK on YouTube. We even have a video called Exactly How I Schedule My Day. And it's 11 minutes that shows you this whole concept in real time and in motion about how I actually block out my day using these concepts. And of course, the course is available on our website, TanyaMFK.com, or you can reach out to me at any of those channels as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanya.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a positive review, and share this episode with someone you know. And remember, your free guide, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life, is waiting for you at radiantlivinginstitute.com. Download it today.